Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and in this episode, I talked to my good friend Ron Stefanski. He blogs over at the 1 Hour Professor and has a great YouTube channel as well. Today, we're going to talk about a specific site that he started in April of 2019. It's earning about $5,000 a month, and we were chatting beforehand. We think the valuation of this site is probably $150,000 to $175,000 if you were to sell it on the open market. And one very interesting thing is this site was almost completely outsourced. He did the initial keyword research, but otherwise he's just been working with contractors and hiring folks. So we're going to get into all the details of this site and hear Ron's story. It wasn't always easy here on this particular site, but Ron, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Doug. Thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure. Excited to be back and talk to your listeners. Hello, everyone, for those that have heard me before.
And yeah, you've been a friend of the show and you've been on a few times, so people can go back and hear some of your other stories where we cover other topics. But for the people that didn't hear that, those other episodes, can you give a quick intro about yourself and what you do these days?
Yeah, for sure. So I had really started in the online business area in about 2014. So it's been quite some time since I've been here. Prior to that, I was in, corporate America, digital marketing, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, since 2014, I essentially have built up a portfolio of websites. I've sold a few off. I still have quite a few, and I'm kind of working on that every single day. And obviously, I think the intro gave it away. I have a team that works with me and under me and everything. So I help direct them with that. And my main focus now is the 1 Hour Professor website. But, as you said, I have still a team working on different things within my portfolio as well.
Cool. And just out of curiosity, your first couple sites, how did they work out for you? How did you first get started on niche sites and affiliate marketing and just display ad sites and all that stuff?
Yeah, a lot of dumb first projects for sure. I probably went through like 7 or 8 pretty stupid ideas. And then I essentially landed on one, which I sold for 6 figures, like mid 6 figures. It was quite an exit. And that was the one that really put me on the map as kind of an expert in the area, I think. But basically that particular site, there was just a family friend who needed something. And I said, hey, let me kind of look out there and see what's out there for this type of issue. Wasn't finding much. There weren't many competitors in the space. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to just build this, built it out. And that thing it was like the unicorn. It just continued to grow over time and got bigger, bigger, bigger. Until, my interests I started to delve into other websites and other projects, started to kind of ignore that one a little bit. Probably shouldn't have done that, but did. And then it hit a point to where there was a lot more saturation in the market, more people competing. And I thought, you know what, I'm not that passionate. So I'm just going to sell this thing now. Sold it. And then I've just been, pretty much building other sites since then. So.
Okay, and we're going to get into the details for one particular site, but you mentioned you have these other sites, you sold a few. So how many sites total do you have in your stable currently?
7 websites. And then one of the things that I do that's unique, I think to me, is that my wife, so she originally comes from Brazil, and she was a really big YouTuber in Brazil, like had 2-point-something million followers on her YouTube channel, a personal channel. So she was doing that for quite some time, got tired of it, ended up basically exiting that channel. And then we were talking about it, and I thought, let's try kind of a YouTube model as well to kind of create YouTube content type of channels, like where people are creating videos for you. And there's a whole lot of other stuff to this, but that's another part of the portfolio. So I actually have currently 4 other YouTube channels as well, but my wife helps manage that whole thing. So she's kind of focused more on YouTube. I'm focused more on websites.
Do you earn much money on the YouTube side?
Not as much as the websites now, because obviously I've been pretty deep into the websites for some time. But I think the YouTube is around like $1,700 a month or so, $1,500 to $1,700 a month, which isn't bad in terms of investment ROI, et cetera. We're about at a break even every month right now, but we're investing really heavily into a channel that like I said, it's a faceless channel, so we're not recording and everything like ourselves. It's on a particular niche, and we're creating and producing videos, and we're at about a break even, but it's starting to grow quite a bit. It's actually very exciting. So
cool. Yeah. I mean, people are trying to do more and more video, so it's not a bad skill to continue to hone and refine. So, okay, cool. Anything else about the portfolio or the business in general before we dive into this specific site?
Not in general. I mean, for the most part, I focus on, like I said, I focus on the websites, and I help a little bit with the strategy on the YouTube channels. And then I still do a fair bit of like consulting here and there. People reach out to me and, ask for certain things. So I work with certain companies to help them with some things. But other than that, that's kind of sums up the portfolio.
Okay. And I thought of one thing. How big's your team? Can you describe who you're working with? And then we'll get into this specific site.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a virtual assistant. She's in the Philippines. She is awesome. She's been with me now for I don't even know. I think she's been with me for probably 5 or 6 years. So she's been great. Kind of like my right hand man or woman, whatever the saying is. So she's been great. And then I also have, for all my websites, I have obviously someone that's producing the content. And that generally is, just a writer. The skill level of the writer really depends on the content being created. So if it's just a random roundup of, something that doesn't require a ton of skill, like backyard decorations, right? I may not get the most expensive writer. And then you have, like with 1 Hour Professor, she helps me with some of the writing there. I have a different writer for that. So it depends, pricing and all that depends on what the subject matter expertise required. But in general, the amount of people that I have, I think at this point, if I think about it, I believe that I have 4 part-time writers. I have 1 editor specifically for 1 Hour Professor, and then 1 editor that handles my other websites as well. So 4 writers, 2 editors, 1 virtual assistant.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So 7. And then if you want to get into like video editors for the YouTube side, we have like 2 of those, and then a script writer. So in total, probably about 10 people, 10 or 11 people.
Would you hire more people if you had like the means to, or are you at the ideal size of your team right now? Or do you need more people to do more stuff?
If money wasn't an issue, the one thing I could get more help with definitely would be more writing and more editing for sure. That's always where I would invest the bulk of my money, is writing and editing. Myself, if I could somehow replace myself to answer my own emails, I'd love to do that, but that's a very difficult thing to outsource. But I think, when I look at websites and projects in general, I look at it as, okay, let's get to where we're at a break even in terms of, if we're investing $500 a month, let's make $500 a month to at least offset that cost. And then I'll carry that over and just keep reinvesting in the business in general. So I think for right now, where the business is at, I think we're at a pretty comfortable level of investment for everything that's happening. I could push a little bit harder and take a little bit less money home, but we have a house and all that. So I think we're at a pretty comfortable level at the moment for everything.
Okay. And you do publish your income reports on 1 Hour Professor. You've done that since the beginning when you were actually losing money for a little while. And it's been cool to see, what is it, like 7 years of income reports monthly, and just like how you've earned more over time. So people check that out.
It's pretty crazy to look at, when I look at 2014, that was when I published my first one. And I look at now, it's funny because a bad month now would have been an extremely amazing month then, so it's funny to see how far it's come.
Okay. In April of 2019, you started a new site, and tell us about it. Why did you start a new site at that time, and walk us through it? We'll get into a lot of the details here, but I'll just let you open it up and tell us about it.
Yeah. So with everything, I'm not going to disclose the URL. Sorry, guys, if you want to see that. I just don't do that because I've had some bad experiences with copycats and such. So, but basically there was, a niche of people that had a specific problem. Most of my sites are built on this. Either like it's something that they're passionate about or they have a problem with.
Yeah. Like erectile dysfunction or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could be if you want to go that route.
Balding,
but yeah.
Something like that. Okay.
Yeah, or balding, hey, there's, that's the thing too. But Yeah. So in general, this particular site was built for a niche of people that had a specific problem. And they're kind of looking for information regarding this and reference points for, around specific things related to it. And I just decided, okay, well, I'm going to create this site. I honestly, at the time, it was difficult to even want to create it because there is like no affiliate. There's no affiliate angle on this. There's really not. If you knew the site, you would understand there's like maybe one product I could possibly do an affiliate, but it was like, hey, this is going to be display ads. This is just pretty much going to be display ads. So, and the commercial intent is not there either. This is not a group of people that, all advertisers are clamoring to get in front of. So I had created the site, not really knowing what to expect, hoping for like 500 to 1,000 a month. And it's very, very well surpassed those expectations so far. So yeah, that's how it all started. And like you had mentioned, though, it's been mostly outsourced. I mean, I did the keyword research, and honestly, I kind of just handed it over to my team because they've been through this quite a few times with different websites that I have, and it's been going from there.
Okay, so you thought of this group of people, you knew there probably weren't any products. It was going to be informational in general. So I think you probably started doing the keyword research. Can you talk us through the keyword research, your approach, and then when did you think, oh shit, like this is really good. I can't keep myself from registering another domain and starting a new site. So what signs did you see in those keywords that made you think, I have to do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Way to dig it out of me. Yeah, that's a good one. So with this particular website, I saw there was I originally got the idea, and then I dove into Google to kind of look at who was out there in the niche, right? How many sites there were. I saw one main competitor that was kind of doing my idea. I saw like 2 or 3 that did some of my idea, and I thought, wow, this is a pretty underserved niche. So that's always a great sign if you can find those diamonds in the rough. They're not easy to find because most websites, have been built, but they're definitely out there. So this was one where it was like, okay, well, there's not a ton of competition, so that's a good thing. And then I started to do the actual keyword research because it's great to not have competition, but if there's no keyword volume or anything, it doesn't matter. So I started to do the keyword research, and I started to notice that there was actually some really high volume keywords here that, I mean, pretty much nobody, except for that one competitor was really ranking for. So I thought, okay. So then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, what else is in the keyword research that I'm seeing? One of the things that I saw a lot of are a lot of the like general question and answer type of sites like Quora. And at the time, Yahoo Answers, I think, was still active. So I was just seeing these random things that it was like, wow, these are just, usually pretty beatable. So I saw all those signs, and I thought, okay, well, let me kind of dive in deep to do the actual keyword research myself. I did a lot of the keyword research, and I saw a lot of potential for just a lot of traffic. Like I said, wasn't even sure on how well it would monetize because, like I said, this had no commercial intent. So it's one of those where you're like, well, should I make it? Shouldn't I? And then when you do the math and you think about it, you're like, well, even if it makes $500,000 a month, eventually that's going to outpace the cost of producing content. So let's go for it. And at this point, I'm in a situation to where I can take that gamble. So I did. And like I said, it's paid off pretty well. But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing was like the lack of competition is a big, big one. And then just seeing a lot of search volume and then looking at the competitors and saying, well, can I do it better than they can? And definitely I could. And I started to, and it started to work.
And you did find a few competitors. And, one of the things that I tell people to look for is you want to find a few competitors, hopefully not too many, but is that something you look for to sort of prove the market that some people are out there getting a little traffic, making a little bit of money, or would you rather see like a completely empty field of competition where there's no other sites? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, if I could ever find one that had absolutely no competition, I would love it, especially if there was high volume searches. But generally speaking, I really feel like almost everything's been done. Like it's not that you can't do it better. It's that it's probably been done to a certain degree. So you may find, like I said, I had one direct competitor and then like 3 or 4 kind of indirect, right? They had some of the stuff, but not all that, so it was kind of the angle I was going at. But I definitely think that, if you're researching something and you see like, I don't know, 1 to even 10 competitors, that's not a bad thing. Like they're proving the concept. And if they're still, if you look at their blog posts and they're still publishing content, well, they're still obviously active. So there's obviously money to be made there. So I'd take it either way. If I can find a website or an idea that has like, I don't know, 5 or 10 or less competitors, I'm thrilled at this point, because then it's like, great, I can jump into here. Because I feel like those more competitive things, there could be hundreds, if not thousands, of competitors with websites. So,
okay, very cool. Is there a certain number of keywords that you look for? I know you're big on keyword research, so sometimes people look for a certain threshold before they even pull the trigger. Do you have anything like that?
I don't in particular, because I've kind of found that like, you start out with the basics of, well, that's where a competitor really helps, right? Because when you look at a competitor, you can kind of look at what are they ranking for? What have they done? And then you start to understand things. So I usually will start there and kind of do like I call it like a keyword dump, just kind of looking at literally hundreds, if not thousands of keywords, sorting by volume. I take like a full 24 hours to really go through that sheet and understand everything to get a full scope of kind of what the niche is and what's available. But I don't have like a specific one, but I will say, at this point, I've made the mistake of niching down too far with a site before, right? And I think the max that ever got per month was like 20 to 30,000 visitors, which wasn't terrible, but it definitely, was like, I'd rather get at least like 100,000 or so. So now when I look at my estimates and things, I think, well, let's make sure that this is big enough before we really move on it. And like this one, if I remember right, I think that like the potential, volume, if I were to get number 1 in everything, I think was like 400,000 or 500,000 a month, which I'm not there. But that kind of gives you an idea where my head's at. Like, yeah, there's some room for some growth in this area.
What is the monthly traffic right now?
Right now, I believe it's at around, I think it's around 150,000 ish per month, page views per month.
Okay. Can you take us through some of the growth? I know this was a brand new site on a fresh domain, right?
Yep.
So yeah, can you talk about the growth trajectory? I mean, it's just over 2 years old, it's like 2.5 years old. So yeah, how was it? Did it like skyrocket, or was it slow growth like everyone else?
Yeah, no, it's been, this one for sure has been a slow and steady increase. There was never like the rocket ship type of thing. It never really went down a ton. It never really went up a ton either. It's been pretty much just kind of climbing every single month, since it really started, to be honest with you. And I've created a ton of content with it. I should say one thing that I have forgotten to say is that I did one link building, quote unquote, campaign with it. At about I think it was about month 7 or 8. I did one link building campaign, just built out a big piece of content, or a good, well-researched piece of content, well-written, emailed it out, did a shotgun email blast to, I remember like 500 targets or something, got like 20 to 30 links back, and I haven't done anything since. And now it's actually getting links organically, which is nice. So, but yeah, in general, it's been pretty much just kind of growing. The first year it was slow, and then every month thereafter, it's pretty much been increasing. So,
did you see anything interesting at the 6 or 12 month time frame from a quote sandbox perspective?
6 month, no. I do feel like 6 month is a little bit too early. I mean, I guess I'm looking at a graph right now. So I did see a little bit of an increase. I actually saw around month 7 or 8, it went down just a teeny bit. So it went up and then it went down a teeny little bit, then back up. And then at about a year, it looks like here, that's when, honestly, right at the year mark, it looks like that next month, it really started to increase and just started to go up and has been going up pretty much ever since then. So
gotcha. I've seen that 12-month sort of time frame too. So, and it also what did you say, month 7 or 8, around the time you were doing your link building, Google's messing with you, right? And then you get a little dip in traffic. You're like, oh shit.
Yep.
Are these links bad? But in the long run, it worked out okay. Okay.
Yeah, and that one was, I mean, that is a little scary too, because you're like, what is going on? Like, are the links bad? But having the experience that I have, I knew that they were good links because these were earned links. They were relevant, all that stuff, all the good stuff. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I feel like people that when they're new to the sites, they sweat so much month to month, and it doesn't always make sense to do that. Like, if it goes down, be like, okay, well, if it goes down for 2 more months in a row, now I got to worry about something. So, it's weird because it was up, then down a little bit, then up, and then about a year is when it kind of stayed flat for a second, and then really started to shoot up even more.
Okay, cool. So it took a little time to get some traction. And can you tell us how many posts are on the site and maybe like the average length and I don't know, like the style of the content too? Because it's informational. A lot of people often think like just affiliate reviews or just sort of question kind of content. So how much content, length of it, all those details.
Yeah. So I have about 150 informational blog posts is what I call them. So those are kind of answering questions that are relevant to the audience. And then I have about 1,600 informational pages on the website, which are essentially, just a database full of information for what these people are looking for. So it just those particular pages, and I know 1,600 is a lot, but we're writing about 10 a week. So it's just, information that random people are looking for. It's kind of like a database or a hub of a ton of information. In terms of like the average length, it's hard for me to say because like the blog posts, I will say probably between like 1,000 to 1,500 words ish per blog post. Informational pages, it's really strange because, like I said, it's more of a reference site. So sometimes that page can be 500 words. Sometimes it can be 2,000. I'd say on the high end, probably 2,500. But generally speaking, it's, somewhere in the middle there for the most part, probably around 1,500 usually. Okay.
And can you make some analogy of a different industry, what these 1,600 informational posts might be? I have a couple ideas that I might throw out if you draw a blank, but is there some analogous industry where there might be these kind of posts because people may have a hard time thinking about 1,600 pieces of content that actually need to be out there.
The example I can give is if, let's say, you created a website that was a fitness website and you wanted to write a detailed page on every single gym that was in a particular state, or maybe across the whole nation. That's a farther degree than what I've done, but it's something similar to that. Or like if you started a website, and I've talked about this multiple times, but you started a website on getting a driver's license, and you wanted to create 50 pages, one for every state on how to go through the DMV, something like that. It's kind of along those lines, but maybe the gym one's a better example. So
I think that's a perfect example. I was going to say like golf courses or something like that, where there are, potentially a lot of them in every county. And then you can expand that and you could end up with, tens of thousands of, it's kind of like a directory or something, tens of thousands of pieces of content where people would legitimately look for it. And each one might not get much traffic, but you have a lot of them. So great. Yeah. From a content structure standpoint, how templatized is this? It seems like, like you said, some of them are fairly short, some of them are much longer. So how did you direct your writers to actually create those, non-blog posts, these informational posts?
Yeah. So basically, they're looking at the specific resource that I'm writing a page about. And basically they have a set of kind of questions or areas that they have to focus on within each. So these are fully templated. I don't see a need to, I'm a huge fan of templates, by the way, guys. I use them for 1 Hour Professor. I use them for everything. But yeah, so I templated them to the point to where it's like, okay, answer this part of it, answer this part. And then, here's where you have some wiggle room to add any special other things that should be mentioned for this particular resource, and they're then able to do that. But I'm a huge fan of templates. I use them all the time. every single one of those pages goes through the same questions, same, not the same answer, but the same questions, and detailing all the information for the user. Because honestly, it's good to do it that way, because I looked at my competitor, I saw what they were doing. I thought, okay, what else can I add to make my pages even more valuable? What bits of information added? I think like 4 or 5 each, and stuff that people definitely need. And then went a little bit more in depth, and just kind of let the writer do what they do.
Any issues with producing that amount of content?
It's been kind of a challenge, because it's actually just one blogger, one writer who is doing 10 articles or 10 posts a week. The reference pages that I've built out, or informational pages, if you will, she doesn't have as much of a hard time with, because she's really just trying to find information in various sources and then collectively putting it all into one page. So sometimes it's tough because she can't find the information, right? Certain places don't have the information. But she's trying to kind of put that into a culmination of a page. So that hasn't been too bad. So it's about, like I said, it's been 10 a week. Usually about 8, maybe 9 of those are the informational pages. And then 1 or 2 of those are informational blog posts.
Can you share how much you're paying, like per week or per month, for that particular writer?
Yeah. Roughly my content budget for this month in total is about $900 each month for her specifically to do that. And then I also have an editor that looks over things, but she spends maybe 30 minutes a week. It's not like she's not super expensive.
Sure.
So I have that. And then also my virtual assistant, which we can talk about structure of the team and all that in a minute, but yeah.
Okay. So, well, here's where my mind is going. Do you have a lot more content that you want to publish on this site?
At the moment, yes, there's a lot more keywords that need to be researched, believe it or not. It's a large resource of information. So yeah, there's I'd say probably about 32 to 3,500 total informational pages that will eventually be built. And again, we're at about 1,600, so we're at about half. And then also informational blog posts, I'd say we're probably aiming for about 250 to 300 blog posts. So there's still quite a bit of writing to go on this site. It's a big topic for sure.
Okay. And then, all right. So there's a lot more content that you want to publish, right? And as you publish, does the traffic and revenue sort of incrementally increase each month?
It was. Yeah, it does sometimes. That's why I said it's been kind of a slow and steady gain, right, with this site. But it's been kind of interesting because I'm looking at a graph again on my one income report here. And so page views actually have increased just a little bit some months, like 1,000 or 2,000 more in a given month. Revenue, for the most part, has been on an upswing and then had a little bit of a downturn and then is going back up again. So for the most part, yeah, like I said, it's just slow incremental growth. For the most part, there hasn't been that big pop that happened ever with this site. It was just kind of slow and steady. But yeah, for the most part, what's been a little bit weird as of late is that, like for instance, from last month to the prior month, the traffic increased by 0.5%. That was the increase amount, right? So it's like nothing. So it's kind of like, well, why isn't that happening when we're publishing 40 more posts? You know what I mean? Like, why isn't it increasing more? And I feel like sometimes with sites, you kind of hit this like invisible plateau at times. And if anybody's wondering, like, what is my strategy to get through that? Well, if I was just focusing on this site, I would probably say, okay, well, maybe it's time to do a little bit of a link building campaign. Not a huge one. Let's just try to get 5 to 15 more links, that are relevant, that are good. But I can't really focus on it. So right now, not hitting the panic button. I'm just kind of going to say, okay, well, let's just keep producing content and let's just assume that Google's going to catch up. And then the other thing I've been doing too is now that things are ranking, obviously, and things are going pretty well, I'm going back to look at what is bringing in the most traffic and then looking at my positions and saying, okay, well, can I increase this? Right? Like if I revise this piece of content, is it possible to increase it? And there's about 3 posts that if I revise, could definitely yield probably 2 to 5x more traffic. And they're pretty high volume searches. So, and oddly enough too, those are through the blog posts. Those aren't the informational pages either. So,
okay. Gotcha. Okay. And we'll get into monetization here in a second. But yeah, basically my thoughts were you're making like $5,000 a month. You just said your content budget is about 900 and it's around 20%, something like that, which is a respectable amount to reinvest. And I've never been a person who said you had to reinvest like every dime back into the business. Some people really get off on that sort of idea, but you don't have to do that. I mean, there's no right or wrong way. One can reinvest all the money back into it, but sometimes you have to pay for a mortgage or some other shit that you're, dealing with, which I respect. But my thought was, if you have that much more content, why not hire a few more writers? It sounds like you have the templates and systems, you have editors, everything's dialed in. So my thought was, is there anything keeping you from just sort of pouring a little bit more gas on the fire here and publishing more content more quickly?
Yeah, I think the thing that's holding me back is the rest of my portfolio, because the way that I work, because I have a whole portfolio, is it's like, people look at that and they're like, wow, you're making 5,000 and you have, $900, so you have $4,100 every month to just free and clear, right? No, because I use that to then build other properties that I'm working on. I have the YouTube channel. Well, the YouTube thing is actually about break even right now, but there's, the 1 Hour Professor site I'm investing heavily in right now into content. So there's that to help me with that. And just, other projects that I'm working on. There's another site that I'm building right now. And that one's about $500 a month in content. That's not making anything. So when you add all that together, there is definitely still money being poured back into the business. At this particular site, no. And the reason why I think I'm not pouring more onto the fire there is because I get into a level of comfortability with my writer, my editor. I like the process. It's low stress. It's going pretty well. I'm seeing increases every month. Don't fix it if it's not broken is kind of my thought. I could throw more into there, but then it's like, well, why? I'm comfortable with how it's going. It's growing well. And apparently Google likes what I'm doing. So I'm just going to keep doing that. So I'm okay with doing that, considering that I have all the other things inside my site going on anyway, or inside my portfolio anyway.
Well, and basically you're subsidizing your other sites with the revenue from this one. So this brings a little debate. And Ron, I didn't tell you that we were going to debate here, but I know
here we go.
I know you're competitive.
Start sweating.
So you're betting that the sites that you're building now will have a better ROI than if you just put the money back into this site that we're talking about. Which, right, no one knows. We have no idea. One of those sites could take off. It could make everything else that you've been working on look silly because it's so much bigger and more successful, or it might not turn out like you think and you're sort of spreading yourself thin. I don't have a specific answer, but the bet is there's going to be a better ROI on one of the other pieces of the portfolio, or you wouldn't take the money away from this particular site and subsidize the other one. So any thoughts on that? Am I off base? Or
I think you're 1,000% correct.
Okay.
I'm taking that gamble. And that's one of the things is I've always been big on diversifying, and thank freaking God I have, because, one of my sites got hit by Google AdSense and had issues, and, certain times things get hit by the algorithm. I've had that happen. I've lived through that and I've been through it. If someone was brand new, right, and I just want to put this in someone else's perspective, I would say, and it's working really well, then maybe push more into it. Maybe go a little bit harder, right? I'm not brand new, and I have all these other properties rather that I've been working on. So for me, I see these 2 other websites in particular, I know for a fact have a larger market, have more upside if I can do it right. Can I do it right? There's no guarantees, but I'm betting on myself in that regard. And we'll see kind of where they play out. But I for sure agree with you that in some eyes it might be like, well, why don't you just reinvest it all into this particular website, right? It's going so well. I think I would much rather diversify a little bit, try other projects. Because if you haven't gotten it already, anybody that's listening, I get a little bored, and I really am like the quote unquote serial entrepreneur type where I like to try new things. My wife and I are thinking about buying an Airbnb property, and this is totally outside of online business. So I just get a little bit bored, and I enjoy to kind of dabble into different things. And generally speaking, I feel that diversifying is crucial to long-term, long-term being able to kind of stay around for a long time. Because like I said, if I just focused on the one site that really did well, that I had a good exit from, if I just focused on that, I wouldn't have any of the other sites that I have. And I still have a whole portfolio of sites that's bringing me a good amount of revenue every month, and I'm still able to try new things. So I enjoy that more, but I guess it's a personality thing, kind of depends on what you like.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And the great part is like, we don't know, like you can't do both things and then go back and think, oh yeah, I really screwed up there. So
no.
You're making a decision, you're moving forward. You're not in a position where like you have to do one thing or the other. You've given yourself options because of all the hard work you've done over the years. So
yeah. And I live in Vegas, so taking a gamble, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're living the lifestyle. So, and I will add one more thing because I've never gone the portfolio route, and I've like actively tried to reduce things. And Ron and I are in a mastermind. It's sort of morphed into us just hanging out and talking at some point. But basically, I've like slowly reduced things. And from a stress standpoint, there's like less admin, there's less things on my mind, and I'm just calmer because I have fewer things. The diversification might not be as good, although I have diversified in other ways. So I sleep well at night and I have fewer like moving parts. And some people like to be busy and like to have moving parts, and I don't. I'd rather just be a little bit lazier. So, but there's no wrong way. It's just, like you said, a personal preference. You like to be, working on different projects where maybe you're changing tasks a little more often than I am.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I enjoy the challenge of going into new areas and trying to beat the competitors and growing and such. And to be, completely transparent, I mean, the one website that's taking up a ton of effort in my time right now is the 1 Hour Professor site. My portfolio of sites that I have otherwise, honest to God, does not take that much time at all because, like I said, structuring a team, I have writers, I have an editor, I have a virtual assistant to post stuff. So it really doesn't take me that long to work on those sites, and they're not that big of a distraction. There's sometimes that there's a few emails that come through, but generally speaking, they're really not that bad. The tough one is the 1 Hour Professor one because that one's a little bit harder with all the emails.
I'll have to bring you back on to talk about that one. I know you have a lot of stories to tell from the last year on that one. So
yeah.
Okay, well, now's a good time to take a quick break and talk about Ezoic and their product Leap. It'll help your site get green in core web vitals. And Ron, do you use that tool?
On some of my sites, yes, and I can report good things. I have nothing bad to say about Ezoic. I recommend it myself. So
awesome. And that is a perfect transition because the site that we're talking about today is monetized with Ezoic. And can you tell us a little bit about any of the integration or like working with Ezoic in general? I know you have some stats on the earnings per visitor and stuff like that. So can you talk about monetization for us?
Yeah. So this particular site, when I had launched it, so my quote unquote rule of thumb, right, is usually at about 10,000 page views a month. Page views, not visitors, page views. At that point, I decide, okay, let's put display ads on. I mean, I could do it earlier, but it's kind of like, why? I feel like it just interferes with the user experience and stuff, so I don't really do it until then. I started out with Google AdSense, I think, for the first probably 3 months because I was frankly too lazy to put everything onto Ezoic because it takes a little bit of time. You have to get everything set up and all that. So after that, and after it started to make some money, because when you put it onto AdSense, you can kind of see, okay, how much does it make per 1,000 visitors? You can kind of see that information. And I didn't even know where it would fall. That was like the big gamble with this. So I didn't know where it would fall. I think it was around like 20, 25-ish, which isn't bad, especially for a site that's just informational, right? So I was like, oh, well, that's pretty good. And I know
$20 or $25 per 1,000 visitors.
Yes, yeah, okay. To clarify, yeah. And I didn't know exactly where Ezoic could take it, but based on my experience with other websites, I know for a fact, because Ezoic is constantly testing things. So I know that they're going to be able to get more than I could with my own, manually inputting ads. I know that now. And I refused to use Google Auto Ads because I had issues with invalid clicks, and that's a whole different thing we don't have to get into. So I don't even do that anymore. So I was like, okay. Then I had implemented Ezoic and then had put them onto the site, used Leap, a minimal amount, quite frankly. I'm not, deep entrenched into it to where I'm trying to get the perfect score. I'm not that type of person. It's at a respectable score. It's, kind of mid-grade, not the highest, not the lowest. And I've been fine with that. And now I'm looking, it is about $35 per 1,000 views for that particular site, which is quite an increase. That's quite a bit. So that was able to happen. And for those wondering, like, what did I do? What was the magic sauce? I put it onto Ezoic and I turned on AI placeholders, which is artificial intelligence placeholders. They'll put them in there to try to figure things out. And I left it. And just over time, it optimizes. That's the beauty. And they just test every single page view. They test new layouts and all these different things. And that's how that happens. So
can you talk a little bit about how long it takes to actually like integrate? So if someone has a site and they're getting, a few thousand visitors, because Ezoic actually removed any page view limits at this point. So you could actually get in there and start integrating. So what's the integration process like, and how much time might a person expect to spend on it?
Yeah, it really, honestly, it doesn't take that much time, because what you have to do is you have to point your domain to their DNS servers. That can take, like, they say 24 to 48 hours. Usually it's quicker than that, but that's what they say. So you get that done. And then it's just a matter of looking at your placeholders and kind of setting everything up. So there's like a default that you can set up with it. But like I said, I turn on the AI placeholders because that just, it optimizes for you. And you got to have some patience with this, because, sometimes you're going to load your site and you're going to be like, why is this where, this, it looks so stupid. Well, don't worry, because it's not doing that with every page load. It's testing things. That's what the system does. So yeah, in terms of like actual setup time, probably like, I don't know, I'd say like 3 to 5 hours, maybe, if that, to get it all set up. And then after you have it set up, if you're doing it the right way, you turn on the AI placeholders, you can just let it do its thing. And then the other thing that I always do is I'll go into there and, specific pages I don't want ads on at all, like the homepage, right? Some people like that. I don't. So I always turn them off for that page, and then maybe like the about page and, contact us. So there's certain pages where I'll go in and copy and paste to get rid of, make sure the ads aren't showing on those URLs. So a little bit of fine tuning, but yeah, not too long. I'm just that lazy. And, the whole thing is, when I have a portfolio of sites and, one's making 5,000-10,000 a month, I'm not clamoring to go and switch the ads around on this particular site that's making $200 a month, which, at the time, that's probably what it was making. So it wasn't like my highest priority thing. So.
Got it. And just curious, as time has gone on, you've worked on the site and you're familiar with more the content and ideas and the niche and the industry and everything. Do you think there's any way to monetize this in different ways other than just display ads?
If I wanted to, yeah, I could definitely create informational products for the audience. I know for a fact I could do that and put, a lot of effort into that and a lot of time into that. And I would definitely see a return there, maybe make some courses. I'm sure I could do that. Affiliate, no, not really. There's really just not that much of affiliate in this particular area. Maybe like, maybe 1 or 2 products in general. I could go and create like a whole community for these people and set up a paid community and this, that, and the other, but then I have to be there and show up and deliver all this value every month and yada, yada, yada. So I'm just not looking to do that. So for me, yeah, I think the number one opportunity would be the informational products, and there's definitely something there to be said for it. And if people are wondering, well, Ron, why aren't you doing that? There's an opportunity cost, because if I spend my time there and it makes a max of an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month, for someone starting out, they're probably like, yeah, that's worth it. And to me at this point, no, it's not, because I can work on my other websites that can make 5, 10, 15,000 a month. So that's where there's just that opportunity cost. And I have to prioritize and make that decision. What do I want to work on? And also what kind of lifestyle do I want to set up for myself? So like in my last income report, I announced that my wife and I are having a kid. We are having a little baby girl in April of 2022. She is due. So it's kind of like, I think that has helped me kind of take a step back and look at things and say, how do I want to do this? Do I want to be like Doug and be a little bit more chill? Yeah, maybe that'd be a good thing, like make sure I can spend time with my kids. So I think that's a part of it too, is, instead of going as hard as possible at all times, maybe looking at things and deciding where it makes the most sense to spend your time.
Indeed. So from a monetization standpoint, any other things to bring up, talk about?
Hold on. I'm just looking at things and gathering. No, for the most part, I mean, I think the biggest thing to take away with this particular site, right? So we have the blog posts, which are the ones that oddly, some of them are actually doing a decent amount of traffic. But the thing is, this site is like one of the other sites, well, a lot of the sites that I build where there's 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 or more pages, right? And people may say, well, why do you do that? Why do you build so many? Because over time, as you build them, your traffic is diversified so much. And there's so much stuff that, the income is going to come from all these different places, which is the key to the whole thing. There's not one particular page that can lose rank, and then all of a sudden you lose $2,000 in a day, or in a month. I mean, so that's kind of the way that I've looked at this particular website, and just built it out that way. And I feel like it's been going pretty well. Hopefully the invisible plateau that I've hit will end soon. But that's really been the big focus of what I've been doing. So
with that, you kind of break the sort of 80-20 idea that a lot of times people will say, oh, just 20% of your pages are bringing in most of your traffic, and really take care of those. And when I had sites, like some of my early sites were like that. And just like you said, maybe there's one page that's bringing in like 90% of the revenue. And if you lose your ranking, even if you just go from like number 1 to number 2, like your revenue drops by 40%, something dramatic. So you don't face that at all because like you said, it's so diversified. Like the top page is probably only getting like 1% of the traffic, right? Something like that.
Yeah. I think the top page last time I saw was 3% of the traffic, which is not a crazy amount. And that particular page has like no competition either. So, I mean, that's like the beauty of it. Like conversely, the one of our professors that I'm working on, it's exactly what you said. If I go from position 1 to 4, that could be a lot of money in a given month. And now I'm kind of seeing both sides of it. I definitely prefer the, let's have 3,000 pages and lose a page and oops, no big deal. As long as the trend continues to go up overall, for sure. I like that better.
So one piece of data that you said you had that I haven't asked you yet is, I think, the total revenue that you've earned and the total expenses and kind of the ROI, the big picture. Can you talk about those pieces of information?
Yeah. And just, I'm a psycho with numbers, and it's, these income reports, I do them every month. And this is for me, right? Like, this is great to see this stuff because it's kind of like, well, where are we really at with this? It's so hard to keep track of this stuff. So, in terms of investment into the site, it's been about 36,900 ish. And how much money has the website made? 38.5. So the total ROI on this site right now, so the actual profit walking away, has been about $1,700 total. And that's after all content, everything's been invested. If I were to turn around and sell the site right now, I think you mentioned this earlier, but if I were to turn around and sell the site right now, assuming around $5,000 a month in profit, which I think is, I could just turn off content production and, sit there for 3 months and just say it's all profit. I would say it will probably be, if I were to sell it, 150 to 175,000 is probably where it would end up selling for, I think, at this point.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. It's always good to hear those numbers, and, people can hear the whole story from the very beginning, April 2019, the slow growth. And then I think you probably slowly invested, and then as it ramped up, you started putting more in. And I encourage people to check out, I've been doing a case study with a student of mine, Christy, who earns about half from affiliate revenue and half from display ads. And she started her site in like October of 2018. But when you earn from affiliate products, like typically you're going to earn more like per visitor most of the time, per page and all that stuff. So even with like the Amazon commission rate being lowered effectively in 2020, she's still able to earn, quite a bit from Amazon. So anyway, I encourage people to contrast like sort of the timeline and the earnings overall. And I think she's spent roughly about the same, like 32,000 or so, something like that.
Yeah.
And she's been hovering in the like $6,000 to $7,000 range, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's funny because people, you know, when I know when I started out, if someone said, "Oh, I've invested $37,000," like I could never invest. I get it, but that's a lot of money, but you have to understand that's over about 2 years, and most of the money that I've invested into this site, it was the profit that the site was making. So it's not like I was taking this money out of pocket and, investing $1,000, $2,000 a month. It wasn't anything like that. It was kind of like a slow investment in the beginning. It started to make a profit. It started to be break even. And I love when it hits break even, because at that point I'm like, all right, let's really pour it on. And like I said, 10 articles a week, 40 a month. That's at this point, I poured it on about as much as I can. And it still makes a profit every month, which is great. So.
Right. Very cool. Well, Ron, anything else on this site that I forgot to ask you about?
No, I think we're pretty clear on it. Yeah, no, I think we're good. I don't have any other metrics for you, but
all right.
Yeah. Just in general, like I said, at this point, it's cool because I've reached that point with this site where it's getting, it's starting to get those organic links, which is also a very good sweet spot to be. I don't have to do any more link building. I haven't focused on it. And some pretty high domains are coming to my site and linking over, which is a great place to be. So
very cool. Well, we'll put links so everyone can get to your stuff, but where should people go to look for you and your content?
Yeah, just onehourprofessor.com spelled out. Or if you want to find me on YouTube, you can do it there too. Or on Facebook, or just Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all those places. That's 1 Hour Professor.
Very cool. All right. Yeah. And if people have questions, shoot me an email, feedback@Doug.Show. We'll have Ron back on. We'll talk about other stuff. I don't know what yet, but we'll have Ron back on pretty soon. So thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. And it's great to be here again.